Heyo, Skulls here. Those of you who already know me and are familiar with my content, you know that I'm a mega Sonic fan. But since my YouTube channel is still pretty small, I'll tell all of you new people here a little bit about me. Sonic is one of the first ever games that I played, like, when I was too small to even understand what I was doing. And it's been my favorite franchise ever since then. I played pretty much every Sonic game, minus like 1 or 2. Funny enough, one of them is Sonic 06. And my absolute favorite Sonic game, or maybe even like my favorite game of all time, is Sonic Adventure 2 Battle for the GameCube. So I wanted to take the time to talk about Sonic Frontiers. Since a ton of people have asked me my opinion on it, I figured it might be a little bit easier just to make one video instead of repeating myself on stream. But before we go on, like I said, my YouTube is still growing, so if you like any of my videos, subscribe for more. I also do stream on Twitch, but I'll leave links in the description for that. So first thing, I don't do review content. That's just not really my thing at all. So this is really going to be more of a discussion, I guess, more of me talking about my opinion, but feel free to join in on the discussion in the comments. The first thing I want to talk about when it comes to Sonic Frontiers is the story. Old Sonic games weren't super heavily story-based, but they did have a story going on in the background. It was pretty self-explanatory. You see Eggman, Eggman's the bad guy, he's trying to do bad things, Sonic, squish Eggman, the end. As Sonic grew as a franchise, it started to have more and more story, at least involved in the games. Sonic has always had a pretty in-depth story when it comes to the comics, the TV shows, and things like that. And many of the storylines were almost like alternate universes. They didn't really connect. I think they were still kind of figuring out what they wanted to do with Sonic as a series. But later on, I think once the Adventure series came out, they kind of just kept everything cohesive and the story connected a bit more. Sonic CD is another example of where the story kind of got more depth. But unfortunately, back in the day, not a ton of people knew about Sonic CD because a lot of people didn't have the SEGA CD add-on. Just keep in mind, I'm doing this all from memory, so if you need to fact check me a little bit, feel free to correct me in the comments. But Sonic CD is like one of my favorite Sonic games in existence as well. That easily had the #2 spot as far as like my overall Sonic games that I love. I guess that kind of like puts in perspective the types of Sonic games that I like. So anyway, back to the story in Frontiers. The story to me started off really strong, especially if you read the Convergence comics that the official Sonic page posted on Twitter. I actually did a video where I read through the comics with very interesting voice acting if you guys want to see that. But yes, the Convergence comics kind of gave you an idea of what was going to happen, and the story literally started where the last frame of the Convergence comics ended. Pretty cool that they added another layer to it. So people who didn't read the comics kind of started off being like, what's going on? And people who did read the comics were like, yo. Once you got past the tutorial part of the story and you started doing the main storyline with Amy, it kind of felt like it was a little cheesy, in my opinion. And I was very worried about the route the story was going to take. It didn't fit because that aspect of the story just felt a little more childish. And the Sonic game itself felt mature. But once you got closer to the end of the island, you saw where that part of the story connected to everything else. And it was almost just like, I don't know, I was mind blown. I really didn't expect the turn that it took with the connection to the Cocos and what happened in the past. It left me wanting to know more about the story. So, of course, I rushed to the second island. So Knuckles' story felt a little bit better when it started because when you were helping the Cocos, you knew that there was more to the actual Coco story than just helping these little creatures on this island figure something out, you know? And then even seeing like the memory from Knuckles and how the ruins and things there connected to Angel Island and places like that, the Mystic Ruins as well. That I found really interesting, and I hope that some way, somehow, they actually go more in depth. I don't think that they will, honestly, and that kind of makes me sad, so maybe someone will do a fan comic talking more about the history of Angel Island and how it connects with the islands that we were on in Sonic Frontiers. It felt like they were giving us a bit of nostalgia, but it didn't feel forced. It almost felt like you were really close to having questions answered that you've had for a very, very long time. Now, part of me wants to go back and play all of the games that have connections to Angel Island, which is most of the games, and see how things like maybe things that happened with the Master Emerald and Tikal, things that happened with Knuckles in his past, things that happened during the Adventure series. I want to see if those little things are connected. And it is a really nice look because I feel like the whole franchise was kind of memed for a bit. And as someone who loves the franchise, you don't like to see that, you know? And I feel like the games that were good have always stood strong, like Adventure 2, Adventure as derpy as it is. CD 1, 2, and 3, you know, all of those games hold their spot really tightly as being some of the best games ever. But then you have so many misses, so many games that either took the storyline and just kind of shredded all of the work and build-up that they did before, or just went in a weird direction that Sonic didn't need to go. And when I say that, I don't mean that in a gatekeepy, Sonic must be like this, this, and that, the way that I like it type of way, because I'm very open to people trying new ideas. I'm very open to seeing series that I like take new paths and try new things. But some of those things were really just unnecessary, and it almost hurt to see it. It was cringe to anyone who was a fan, and memed by people who were new to the series. But yes, so as you continue through the story, I like that the level of difficulty got higher and higher per island, which, I mean, of course, it's going to progress and get higher and higher. But some of the stages and some of the objectives that you had to do in the islands felt so difficult to figure out. And at times I even got a little frustrated. I did my first run on live stream, so my chat got to see me just like freak out. You did feel a sense of satisfaction with the level of difficulty. I'm not a big fan of games that just feel difficult for the sake of being difficult. And they kind of just punish you for being bad, but then when you are good, you're just like, meh, okay, good job, whatever, let's move on. I like the fact that I felt very, very satisfied once I was able to do things like navigate through the third island. Holy crap, I hated that island so much. And also get through the island with the towers that was after that. Oh my goodness, those towers. I think those towers forced me to be decent at platforming. Like, as much as I'm a Sonic fan, I am not good at platforming games. All right, I know we're veering off topic a little bit. So the story. So once I beat the story, honestly, I felt like there could have been more, but this is a good start in the right direction to what we want from Sonic games. We don't want the story to be overdone. We don't want it to take itself seriously. The fact that Sonic still says his goofy stuff, but it's not completely cheesy. It just feels like mature Sonic, you know? I don't know how else to explain that. Oh, and another thing that I liked was the fact that they gave us more depth to the villains. And you know what? They've been trying to give more depth to Eggman for a really, really long time. And sometimes it works and sometimes it just doesn't. You had this new character, Sage, which in a sense was a part of him. That was his AI. That became his daughter. That was tied to the technology on the island. And in a sense tied to the world that Sonic is originally in. You got to see Sage go from being a cold AI, following orders and just doing what her main objective is, to seeing Sage try to understand the value of friendship, why Sonic is so motivated to help everyone out, even though he's suffering. You got to see Sage feel emotionally attached and detached from Eggman. And then even once you got further in, you got to see Eggman show that he has emotions. He's not just angry and yelling. And I mean, we've seen this before, but again, sometimes it's just not done right, and it leaves a weird aftertaste once you're done with the game. The last scene in this story made me cry harder than I've ever cried in a Sonic game. Like, Adventure kind of made me sad when I thought that Shadow was dead. And even the story with Shadow and Maria, things like that. The story with Dr. Eggman's grandfather, like, that made me sad, that made me emotional, but this story just hit my heart in a different way. The next thing that I want to talk about is very important to people who are like huge fans of Sonic and people who don't really care about Sonic but know it exists. The music. They went in on the music. Like, every single aspect of the music was good. It was top tier. And that's what I expect from Sonic games. Even some of the worst Sonic games have amazing music. Like, I don't want to trigger any any crazy discussions, but Forces was a very mid game in my opinion, and I listen to Forces music almost every day because it's so good. The adventure games, of course, are known for their music. Even like the old games, even in 1, 2, 3, like, for their time, their music was really, really good. Even now, you know what? I'm not even gonna say for their time. Even now, the music still stands up. Before we talk about overall things, the characters, and this is gonna be brief because there really isn't much to say. A lot of people have issues with the voice acting. I personally don't. Yes, it was a little weird to get used to. Even watching people play the game for the first time, when they hear Sonic talk, they're like, whoa. But yes, it was a little weird to get used to, but I do like that it does feel like they grew up. And even when they refer to things in the story, they refer to them as being in the past, like Sonic talking to Tails about his accomplishments. They seem like they're not super far in the past, but the assumption that years have passed. I'm gonna sound like a stereotypical Sonic fan here, but like, where is my Chao Garden? I think Sonic Frontiers may have been my favorite game if it wasn't missing a Chao Garden and if it had my favorite characters. I technically can't say it's my favorite game if it doesn't have my two favorite characters, Rouge and Shadow, in the game. One thing I didn't really enjoy gameplay-wise was the camera lock side-scrolling thing. It just felt uncomfortable. Honestly, I didn't like it. I didn't like that I was forced to do that in the open world because it's very easy to accidentally hit like a bumper or like a speed pad and end up somewhere completely different because you went up a rail and down a wall and all kinds of stuff. But like, when you're trapped in like side scroller and you can't jump out of it and you have to go all the way to a different side of the map just to come all the way back because of a simple mistake, that was a little frustrating. They've said themselves in interviews and things like that Sonic Team really is listening to our feedback. And that's how Frontiers was created the way that it was partially because of us, because of the fans, because of the people who enjoy the series and were like, hey, we need something to revive it or this series is going to die. I think the next game may end up being my favorite Sonic game. I know that's extreme foresight, especially since my favorite games have held their position for years upon years. But I think it will be. And even this game, I rate my second favorite right now. Because of its potential. Because of the hope it gave all the Sonic fans. I guess if I had to give it a rating, I would say 8 out of 10. But at the time of this video, I haven't done every single side story. I'm currently doing a second run that's very specific, but after that I plan on doing a run where I do the story in order, including all of the side story. And if you guys do like this video, then maybe I'll make another video then and see what I can catch that ties into the other games. If you guys saw the Twitter takeover, Shadow wasn't even in the Frontiers game, but he was involved in that too. So I think the next game may have like Shadow and Rouge. If you guys watched until the very end, and this is a heavy spoiler if you didn't watch this or you haven't beaten the game yet. If you watch till the very, very end after the credits, they also show Eggman being able to connect to Sage again. So Sage is probably going to come back into the story. Well, to you Sonic fans out there, the future is very, very bright for us, and I am more than excited for this. I really hope that the next game is just everything we've ever wanted and more. I really hope that we get a Chao Garden. That's probably my biggest complaint with Sonic games, is that it's been so long. People are still playing Sonic Adventure 2 Chao Garden because that's like the last Chao Garden we got. Apparently there was a mobile game I didn't know about until like a few days ago, but it doesn't seem like it's very active. So please, Sega, if you could bring that back, that would be awesome. If we can get a game or maybe DLC with playable characters, that would be awesome. Well, that's it for me, guys. We're gonna chaos control out of here, and I hope you all stay comfy. Make sure you guys check me out on Twitch if you want to talk about more Sonic. Sayonara!